The Steelers' initial 53-man roster is out. And in the Steelers carrying four quarterbacks, they'll do something historic, something they haven't done in at least 2 decades. It's not that simple, though. Welcome into the Arthur Moats Experience. My name is Mark Bergin, and the Steelers announced their initial 53-man roster here on Tuesday. Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, no surprise, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson. Now, if you read media reports, I look at Jerry Dulac over at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the Steelers are going to put rookie Will Howard on injured reserve. So what that means is that Will Howard will miss at least 4 games to start the 2025 season. He's recovering from a broken hand injury in his throwing hand. So for the time being, right now, the Steelers have 4 quarterbacks. But again, Howard's going to be going on injured reserve. He'll miss at least 4 games. If the Steelers opt to make a trade, something to keep an eye on for the NFL trade deadline, that is set for early November. It is 4 p.m. Eastern time on November the 5th. But Skylar Thompson has played his way onto this roster. He played really, really well in the preseason, completing more than 73% of his passes. So for the time being, he will be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And let me just clarify, too, with the designation to return from injured reserve, and I'm talking about Will Howard, of when he could be medically cleared. So once he is medically cleared, teams can open up a 21-day window for the player to return to practice, and during this time, the player does not count against the 53-man roster. So again, this is how the Steelers are holding 4 quarterbacks on their roster. This is something historically the Steelers haven't done. They haven't done it in the Mike Tomlin era. The Steelers have twice had 4 quarterbacks on their roster. That is in 1995 and in 1999. So this is historic in a sense, but understand the context that Will Howard's going to be on injured reserve. Okay, a few other thoughts from this is when the Steelers do make a trade potentially at the quarterback position, who are the other teams in need of a quarterback? And I think maybe you get into a few weeks of the regular season because as it stands right now, it was the Raiders, but the Raiders just traded for Kenny Pickett in a deal with the Cleveland Browns. So here are some other teams I'm looking at where, as it stands right now, it's like, could you make an upgrade at the backup quarterback position? Tyson Bagent with the Bears just got a lucrative contract extension there, so maybe that would be a possibility in the event that Caleb Williams got hurt. I don't really see Chicago. Davis Mills in Houston backing up C.J. Stroud. Perhaps if you're the Texans, you could make an upgrade there. Mitch Trubisky with the Buffalo Bills as well. Steelers fans are all too familiar with Mitch Trubisky's on-field play. If Josh Allen were to get hurt, you're pretty much doomed either way. You could say the same about C.J. Stroud and Caleb Williams as well. But those are teams that I'm looking at that could potentially be trade suitors now that the Steelers have 4 quarterbacks once Will Howard returns from his hand injury. But again, keep an eye on that trade deadline. November the 5th is the date that you want to look at there. Some other thoughts about the Steelers roster. I was very surprised with some of the moves that they made at defensive back. So the team terminated the contract of James Pierre. They cut Beanie Bishop, who had 4 interceptions as an undrafted rookie in the slot, and Chuck Clark as well also released. The Steelers opt to keep Brandon Eccles and Dante Kent. I thought it was interesting because Kent is a rookie and he missed all 3 preseason games due to injury. And this is the 3rd consecutive year now that the Steelers have kept every single draft pick on their 53-man roster. But if you look at some of these other releases, DeMarvin Leal released. You go back to that 2022 draft class, and it's tough. With DeMarvin Leal and Mark Robinson cut, only 6 of the 37 picks remain from the final 5 years of the Kevin Colbert era. Yikes. But Leal's departure signals that the top 3 players from that respective draft class in Kenny Pickett and George Pickens, they're all gone and they're not on this roster anymore. Steelers also decide to terminate the contract of veteran receiver Robert Woods, who they just acquired this offseason coming over from the Rams. So he's not on the roster. Ben Skroenak, given his special teams ability, makes this roster along with Scotty Miller. You got Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson, then DK Metcalf at the receiver position. But Robert Woods was brought in to help bolster this receiver position. I still think with other moves that teams are making, potentially you go get a receiver out there out on the street right now. Amari Cooper just went to the Raiders, so that leaves maybe Odell Beckham Jr. still a free agent. I know that they've brought in Gabe Davis to work out. Jacoby Myers over in Las Vegas has also requested a trade with the Raiders with the signing of Amari Cooper. So keep an eye on the receiver position for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they make any upgrades between now and week 1 of the regular season. One other thing, too, that I noticed about this roster, Corliss Waitman making the team over Cam Johnston. The Steelers save about $2 million with this. PFF had the hang time for Corliss Waitman substantially more than Johnston. Waitman averaged 4.84 seconds of hang time on punts this preseason. That was number 1 in the NFL this preseason. Cameron Johnston was 30th at 4.2 seconds. So we'll see. Corliss Waitman's going to be the guy. He did a nice job placeholding for Chris Boswell en route to an all-pro season a year ago. For Waitman, to me, it's the consistency. I know he can boom it down there. Can he be consistent? You got to avoid those 30-yard. You can't afford misses. You can't afford a 30-yard punt when the Steelers need him to flip the field. So that's what I noticed initially on this 53-man roster. Carson Bruner making over Mark Robinson as well. Let me know what you think in the comments. Was there a player you'd have liked to see stay and remain a Pittsburgh Steeler? I thought that Beanie Bishop really made some nice contributions to this team a year ago. I thought it was very telling he did not play in the team's final preseason game, and perhaps the positional versatility of some of the other players on this roster in the defensive backfield. And I'm not just talking about being able to play different corner positions, but also to be able to contribute from a special team standpoint to where the Steelers felt more comfortable with the players that they decided to keep on their initial 53-man roster. I don't think that this is set in stone. I think that the Steelers are still due to make at least one move between now and the start of the regular season, especially considering that the other 31 teams in the NFL are trying to do the same thing to try to make this roster as good as it can be between now and week 1 of the 2025 regular season. Let me know what Yins think in the Yinzer chat. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button here on the Arthur Moats Experience. I'll go ahead and sign off here. My name is Mark Bergin. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.